Welcome, everybody. This is the Risk Management and Patient Safety podcast presented by MedPlace. We're excited to bring you conversations with top risk and patient safety thought leaders from organizations around the country. So please subscribe to the latest news and content. If you find value from this episode, please share it with your colleagues to create meaningful dialogues in this community. Also, if you're interested yourself in participating as a guest, please send us an email at speakers@medplace.com. So I'm your host, I'm Jared Bailey. I'm the CEO of MedPlace. And I'm excited to introduce to you today our guest. This is Denise Atwood. She's the Chief Risk Officer at District Medical Group. So, and by the way, the opinions shared by Denise here today with all of us are hers. They're not the District Medical Group's opinions. And with that, welcome, Denise.
Thank you, Jared. Doing well.
Nice to see you. So for some of our listeners that may not, they may be new to the industry, can you just explain briefly, like, what is risk management in your eyes? And how did you get into it? Like, what's your sort of story coming into risk management?
Risk management at a high level, when we educate new employees at District Medical Group, is really about mitigating or decreasing risk to our employees and to the organization. We do that a number of ways through education, training, answering questions, or if there's a particular real-time event, providing risk guidance to help decrease those risks and sometimes even their anxiety when they're going through some type of unexpected event.
Great. Okay, good. So you've got some empathy and you've got a lot of stakeholders involved here when things go wrong maybe, and you're thinking about all of them along the way. How did you get into this?
I got into it a little bit by accident, I guess you would say. For a number of years, I was a leader in healthcare management. I had gone to law school a little later in life, and then I decided it was time to switch gears. And I thought risk management would be a good fit in healthcare with my nursing and law background. So I became a risk management consultant, learned about what risk managers do, again, about the educating, how to mitigate risk, how to appropriately answer questions and not interfere or in any way go against a law, a rule, or a regulation. And it ended up being a wonderful fit. And that's how I got to be the Chief Risk Officer of a healthcare organization.
I love it. Well, that's a lot of things to keep in your mind at all times as you're navigating also very potentially emotional circumstances. I don't know how you do that. That seems like a superpower. I've had the pleasure to meet a lot of risk managers that share that superpower, and it still eludes me. I'm a technology person, and I love that sort of part of things. But how you guys manage what you manage is pretty incredible. Any misconceptions about risk management that are out there that you often feel or respond to?
Yes, misconceptions could be, we like to call ourselves fixers. But again, once you bring the problem to us, we can help you fix it, whether that's, again, more education, working with the families to do the right thing, or even supporting you through litigation, but we can't make it go away. So once an incident or event has happened, we use that to teach others. But the event, will still remain and be something to grow and learn through. Something unanticipated that I didn't expect getting into risk management is really that secondhand trauma that can happen to providers when an incident or a mistake occurs, and how greatly it really affects them, and being able to work with them to continue to do their very best day after day, because lawsuits may last 2, 3, 4 years. And that's a long time till you may get resolution, and you still have to go do your best every day for the patients that you're still treating.
Yeah, I've heard about the trauma associated with it. I've talked to doctors who've gone through it. I've talked to doctors that mentor doctors that are going through it and other providers. Um, because, and it's important because they're still practicing medicine, and, that's a lot of stress. That's a lot of pressure. And, we want to see them continue to practice good medicine, even though they're in the midst of something that's very difficult for them to navigate, and the patient, and, everyone involved. So that's great. Well, you've been in the industry a while. You've been in long enough to grow yourself and probably change your own perspective, which would be interesting to hear how you've sort of grown in your role. But you're also probably now looking ahead and like, what is risk management 2.0? What does that look like 10 years from now, right? And what should we be doing now and thinking about now, and what's changing today, and over the next few years that others should be thinking about? That was a lot of
Interesting.
questions altogether.
Yes, interesting questions. I was going to say, in general, in risk, I think it draws people who like change and can really succeed in flux and change and emergencies. So, something that I've learned is my nursing and trauma background comes in very handy because I teach my team triage what's coming at us today, triage it, and say which of these 10 priorities are the top two priorities, and then we move from there. So that's something that we learn and do together. Something that we also did was we create risk procedures, meaning if we encounter something new, we draft a physical paper procedure so that if we come back to that issue or concern or situation again, we're very consistent in the information we share, provide the risk mitigation. Where we're going, I really think in healthcare and other industries, it's transferable to other industries. Enterprise risk management, realizing that risk management touches every aspect of your business: finance, strategic planning, human capital, our employees, contracting, IT. IT has a lot of risk, as we know, in and unto
Sure.
itself. You coming from an IT background will greatly understand that, but it impacts what we insure, what type of insurance policies we get. So, really thinking more globally about enterprise risk management touches it all.
Interesting. Well, so how does somebody think about it globally? Like, what sorts of decisions do you make differently when you're thinking about it in that type of scope?
When you're thinking about it in that scope or context, something that we've done at District Medical Group, we actually have a plan. It's an enterprise risk management plan. I happen to have a certification for healthcare risk management through ASHRM, and we use the ASHRM plan that has 8 domains, touches the entire organization from patients to insurance. And that's what we use as our plan to guide us and to educate both our board and all of our employees what that means and what it looks like.
Okay, great. So those listening who aren't aware of that plan, or don't have any plan at all, if they join Ashram, they get access to that type of guidebook, playbook for
Yes,
doing this enterprise
yes,
risk management. Well, that's
yes. And
helpful.
even real-time education, Ashram has started doing enterprise risk management, a 2-day course, which I attended last year.
Great. I'm going to circle back to Ashram because it's an incredible organization that does a lot of organization of risk managers around these different topics. And I know you've got an interesting project that you're working on too. Okay, interesting. So the thinking in terms of the broader scope of enterprise risk management, if you're not thinking about that today, you probably will be thinking about that as a risk manager going over the next few years, and realizing that all of these things do sort of fit together, right? And they do
Yes.
have dependencies on each other. Um, okay, great. Well, what else is, sort of a change that you're seeing happen? I think we mentioned earlier talking around like disclosures, and in some of the ways that I think conversations are changing with
Yes.
patients. Tell me about that.
So, with disclosures of unanticipated outcomes and everyday people, that means something happened between a provider and a patient, and it was not expected. It may have been on the consent form, meaning it may have been a known risk, but if that risk happens, what do you disclose? So we train our providers to have open disclosures, be honest with the patient. Our goal is to do the right thing for the patient and support our providers through that process, because that's a change from a number of years ago for many providers who may have been in practice for some time. So it's educating, it's supporting, and it's bringing a team together that if that provider is not comfortable discussing that unanticipated outcome with the family, we actually bring in their chair to help with those discussions and show them what it looks like in practice.
Wow. I mean, it's a big cultural change from decades past, right? And I think what those in the industry have been in the industry a while we've all started to see that shift. But I don't know, do you have any advice on how, risk managers who want to move towards that type of communication protocol and style, like how do you do that in an organization that hasn't done it before?
That is a really good question. First, I would, since this will be a national podcast, people really need to check their state laws to see if they have what's called I'm sorry laws, or basically laws that say just because you've gone to the patient and said you're sorry for what happened does not equate to liability or you admitting some wrong that could be used against you in a lawsuit later. So it's really important to know the state law in your area before developing this type of program.
Great
And then
advice.
there's other resources. I'm sure Ashram has information, ECRI, ECRI. They have a lot of information about these types of programs. And if you're a physician group with like us that contracts with other facilities, work with those facility legal and risk managers to develop an appropriate program that works for everyone.
That's great. Yeah, and it's interesting that you guys do work with other facilities because you're not necessarily always in the information stream when stuff happens, and yet you need to collaborate together and work together to wrap around the providers involved and everyone else. That can be a lot of moving parts, and it can be different um, you know different philosophies about that, right? And how you reconcile those. I don't know if you have any advice on that, but um, that's interesting. But it sounds like you're seeing a trend in this direction.
Yes, that takes a particular personality style, ability to mediate style, to bring people together that may have very different ideas about how such matters should be treated. But it really starts with an open discussion, because I find most people are adverse to change because of fear.
Mm.
Fear of a past lawsuit, fear of a past disclosure to a patient. So having those discussions to overcome those fears, and maybe looking at other established programs that provide training on how these types of disclosures are done.
It's interesting. I imagine the first time somebody, wades into this water of these kind of early disclosures, open discussion type of styles, that it can be scary, and they're not all going to go well, right? Some are going to be amazing. I've heard some stories that bring tears to my eyes about how well this works. And you hear other stories where, well, that didn't go well at all. And, they came in with an agenda and all sorts of other stuff around it. Um, you've got to have, I guess, some intestinal fortitude to get through some of those hard ones, and celebrate the good ones. But is there any advice? There's anyone that can help through situations like this? I mean,
It's really interesting you brought that up, because yes, there's the disclosures that we perceive went very well, and those that we perceive are more confrontational, if you will. But many times we find patients and their families just want to be heard. And
hmm,
being heard may be, I'm angry that this happened, and learning how to take that potentially critical feedback. We do offer support to our providers through EAP, and actually, because we also employ counselors, we provide counseling to them both before and after if they need it to support them through this process, because it may be very hard to sit across from a family who had maybe a family member that was injured or a patient that themselves was injured in some way and hear that type of feedback. So we provide support at that level as well.
I love that. It's one thing that we've been asked by our clients are, hospitals and also carriers and others in the sort of the ecosystem of risk. And we get asked a lot, MedPlace provides, specialists, nurses and doctors of different specialties to look at cases and work them up. And we've asked, can we also provide specialists that have a background in counseling these providers that are going through this? And so it's something that we're working on right now, and I think it's great. And what I think is great is there's so many organizations that have created that function for their providers, and because it's so hard to go through this type of thing and have these conversations, and sometimes for the first time, right? And especially if they get contentious, like how do you navigate that? And having somebody that's been down that road that can be a steady hand in that process
Yes.
is great.
Yes, we also have peer-to-peer support, and that's through a RISE program. It's a formal program through Johns Hopkins. They trained our staff for peer-to-peer support, and it's resilience in stressful events. We allow our employees to use it for both work-related and non-work related, like maybe a divorce or child custody event. So you have peer-to-peer, non-clinical, but therapeutic support as well.
Fantastic. One thing I hear a lot is a lot of times the patient or the family, they're angry, but a lot of times they just want to know how can this experience help others avoid the situation in the future. And that's it. And that can be, you can take that question seriously, or you can blow it off. But I've heard some really amazing responses to that question of how simple things in the delivery of care protocol were changed as a result of that, and the relief that gave the family, knowing that they could help just avoid that unfortunate outcome that nobody was intending, but to help avoid that in the future.
Yes, and risk managers should take that unsolicited or solicited feedback from patients and families. It's the best way to understand how we are being perceived, that we do our job, and that's delivering the best health care we can.
And seeing that information go back into the quality departments and the medical staff, and really being integrated back into things is really great. I've seen some really great examples of healthcare organizations that do a great job of feeding back the learnings back into to what they're doing, and creating a new best practice. That's really nice. Love it. Well, so you've got a lot of peers around the country that some of them are on an island and might feel alone. Some of them have some great like ashram chapters around them that they plug into. You're thinking of your own, or not thinking. You've started your own kind of organization, specifically the collaborative, just like organizing people. What is the Arizona Risk Management Collaborative like? What prompted the collaborative?
So myself and another risk manager, Maritza, we were talking about ways to do things better and bring together organizations that defend against medical malpractice lawsuits.
Hmm.
And we thought, what a better way to do that than to reach out, see if our peers would come together, those from healthcare organizations, hospital organizations, even an insurer, to see what we could do better to learn about what it takes to defend and do better in this space.
I love that. So the purpose is to bring all these different constituents together and learn from each other
Yes,
and get
to
better
learn
together.
and get better together, and be loosely grouped together. There's no one person that is the president of the collaborative. It's truly a team effort and a collaborative with group input.
I love that. And so like, what are the mechanics, or do you guys get, is there, do you get together in some way, or how do you collaborate? How do you talk to each other?
We do. We
Or how do you
originally
plan on doing that too? I know you're just kicking some of the stuff off.
Sure. Maritza and I thought originally people would maybe we could get them together one time a year, and we thought that would be amazing. But after the first meeting, the collaborative, the team think was, let's meet quarterly. So we just had our second quarterly meeting this morning, and we take up the entire 2 hours, and participants stay engaged about risk and legal matters, things that are on their mind, and we share collectively. So, for example, today at the quarter 2 meeting, we got or the second meeting, we got volunteers for quarter 2, 3, and 4, so that we divvy up the work, the agenda, the presenting throughout the team, and it's not just relying on 1 or 2 people to
One
put
or
this
two
together.
heroes and their heroic efforts to
Yes.
make everything happen. Yeah, like, getting a lot of different people together that are all busy in their different lanes, and exchanging information. If it's not sustainable, if it's on 1 or 2 person's shoulders. So, for anyone who would love to see a little bit more togetherness in their local community, hopefully this gives them a little bit of inspiration on what they might start themselves, the analog of the ARMC, if you will. If people if somebody is in Arizona and listening to this, which is where you and I are both based, right? So,
Hmm.
I do work nationally. MedPlace does work nationally, but we're based largely here in Arizona. So it's nice that you're in our backyard. But if anybody local is listening to this, how do they get involved?
Sure, they could email me at Denise_Atwood at dmgaz.org.
Perfect. And I'll see if I can put that in the show notes as well, in case they are listening to this and didn't quite get that down. But this is great. Denise, is there anything else that you want to give us, any parting words on?
If you're interested in risk management, it is an excellent field. Try to find a mentor to help you navigate some of these areas of risk. But I have found great people that mentored me through this process, and it is a wonderful profession. I really love what I do.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for doing what you do. And thank you for bringing together others so that we can all get better together. I think that resonates with me, that we can learn from each other, and we can move forward and grow and discover what the risk management platform of 10 years from now really will be, right? And how we've worked together to improve that, and what we do in between now and then. So Denise, it was a pleasure to have you. Thanks for making the time. Don't be a stranger. I'd love to have you on again, and let us know, how things are going with the ARMC as we continue to track what you guys are doing. And thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, we'll talk soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye.